welcome back to Talking Out Loud. This is your host, Sully, coming to you on December 2nd, recording and releasing to you on the 3rd. That is Wednesday into Thursday. And, of course, the subject of the conversation tonight is Dayton's 1-0 start versus Eastern Illinois. It was a tough 1-0 start, but Dayton got the 3-point win. We did a rapid reaction podcast right after the game, and it was designed to be exactly that, a rapid reaction, hot takes. I was kind of fired up that the Flyers didn't put away the game, and so I wanted to come on the mic, and I was like, good, I get to be scathing, and I get to say whatever I want to say, because typically I wait until the next morning on the BVR to release my thoughts, and they're honestly like a little bit more tame, and they're a little bit more honest. So today, to bring an honest voice into the conversation that could probably be a lot more level-headed than our rapid reaction, I have my esteemed co-host, third time on the podcast. Mike call him Chip. We call him Ryan Mikesell. Can you believe I think it's your third, or is it your fourth time on the show now? How many times?
I think it's number three
Third
right
time.
now. Yeah.
Okay. So now you now
hopefully
have...
not the last time.
Yeah. Well, okay. So now that we have a good precedent set up here, because if I'm going to release a fan hot take segment right after the game, then you're the perfect guy to have right afterwards, right?
Yeah, exactly. I can try to level down some people if they have a absurd reaction. Hopefully we can bring them back down to earth.
Yeah, just a little bit more closer to middle. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. That's all we want. Nothing too far.
Yeah, like being extreme is no good for anybody on one side or the other, because we're not pessimistic people, but we're not going to tell you that we're going 29-2 this year either. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that. You shouldn't tell them that either. That's disingenuous of you. Don't do that. Let's start here tonight, man. What was your takeaway, like, just right off the top of the game? I mean, like, sitting here now, we've had almost 24 hours to digest. I mean, what stood out to you the most?
Obviously just watching the game, being not in the arena for the first time in 5 years, it was just kind of a shock in terms of just you don't really realize what it's like being a fan. Like, as a player, you don't really get nervous out there because you can control a lot of those things. As a fan, you're just stuck watching, and you're just like screaming at the TV, screaming at the ref, wondering why this player did this, wondering why that player did that, and you're just like constantly just like, I don't know, just going through the motions in your head, and you're just like, what? Like, I wish I could do something about it.
Yeah,
obviously,
this isn't so easy over here, is it? It's not so easy.
Exactly. So all these takes on Twitter that I saw last year during the season, now I get it. I understand your guys' frustration or your guys' excitement. It's awesome. But I thought it was, in terms of it being the first game of the season, you kind of expected some sort of sloppiness. Obviously, they got out to a hot start. They hit the first 5 shots. Chase hit some big first 8 shots. That's what it was.
I think it was 8. Yeah.
Yeah, no, AB started off hot. Chase obviously started off really hot. So it was good to see those guys, see the ball go in early. It's a 40-minute game, so it's always full of ups and downs and stuff like that. So it's a game of runs. Obviously you wanted to see Dayton close it out at the end. But for it being the first game, I thought it was kind of expected the way the Flyers played.
Yeah, and backing up just a little bit, like, they did make their first 8 shots. I'm looking at the first 10 minutes, and the score was 27-14 in that first frame. And I kind of told people that. I said, well, if you're going to say so much negative about the game, you have to back all the way up to the start of the game. And in those first 8 minutes, people were like, wow, like, okay, train's rolling again. Like, we're good to go. And it really did feel like the offense was getting buckets at will. I mean, I'm sure you saw that too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you could see it's not like they were hitting tough shots. Like, Chase got some open ones, Ibby got some open ones, and then after you hit a few of those open ones, Ibby will hit a tough shot here or there. Chase will hit, contested, shot, will hit some floaters in lane, stuff like that. So, it was exciting to see. Honestly, just the guys they got out to a hot start. It being the first game back since March. I didn't really know if they were going to come out sluggish or if they were, what was going to happen, try to feel it out. So it was good to see them come out firing on all cylinders for sure.
Yeah, let's go behind the curtain a little bit. I mean, first night, typically in a season, you've had a scrimmage and then an exhibition. The scrimmage is a lot like what we saw last night, empty arena, friends and family, whatever. And then the exhibition, historically, you guys have used a lot of lineups in the exhibition because, it's somebody that you can beat and you can bring in. But opening night, I know it's hard because it's so different this year. But I mean, can you speak to the fans of like why opening night is different than say like, a non-con game around Christmas?
Yeah, it's completely different. I mean, I know just as a player, you have so much excitement before that first game, no matter who, and like, especially playing at the arena, you have usually, go in there looking forward to 13,000. Like you can about guarantee it's gonna be sold out on opening night, and to play in front of those fans for the first time that season, you just have that adrenaline pumping, and you're just kind of like that first 4 minutes, you're just out there not really thinking too much. You're just out there, just kind of going crazy, getting the jitters out and whatnot. So the fact there weren't any fans there, I'm sure that definitely played a factor in to the energy level. I saw a video. I think Jablonski tweeted out. It was the video where the players run out and the flag's usually supposed to come out and stuff like that. And as a player, I always, that kind of, pumped me up before going out there. All the fans, are out there cheering and stuff. That kind of like woke you up even more. And so not having those fans, I think, definitely played a huge part into it. But it's a huge deal. That first game, you're just kind of going out there testing the waters and you figure out what lineups you should play, who can play this time, who can play with each other. So it's going to be first 5 seasons going to be, or not 5 seasons, the first 5
You
games.
had 5 seasons.
Oh,
Yeah.
My old head. But yeah, the first 5 games will be a lot of Coach Grant's going to figure out who he can play with who, and try to figure out which lineups he can put in at certain times.
Boy, am I glad that you made that transition for me. We're going to have to talk about it. We got to talk about it, man. Christian Wilson was in the lineup last night for 13 minutes.
Yeah.
We were delicate last night because we don't want to slam the kid. Like, I don't know Christian personally. I'm sure he's a nice kid.
Yeah.
When your number's called, you want to get on the floor and do the best you can. So my question to you is, it was Grant sending a message. What was that about? I mean, I'm asking questions today about if I had a concern. I'm just kind of like, what was the rest of the bench doing? I don't know. I was confused.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I can see from the outside, looking in, your fans are like, oh, walk on, like, come on. And there's that stereotype with a walk on, like this guy can't play. He's a walk on, but like, that stereotype's not really like, it's not necessarily true. Like I've played with some really good walk-ons that can really get buckets, and they've had their moments in practices and stuff like that. And I think
Joey gets buckets.
That's what I'm saying. Joey gets buckets. Jack Westerfield, he can really, he could really play. Bonsu, all those guys, they could play. Bobby Worley, he was a walk-on. So those guys, I don't think they get as much credit as they deserve. But if you look at a guy like Christian, like he's been there, I think this would be his 3rd year on the team, 3rd or 4th year.
Yeah.
He obviously knows the system defensively. He knows what Coach Grant wants. And I think that's really what it came down to. When you throw a guy like that out there, you kind of know what you're getting. He's going to be solid defensively. He's going to compete his butt off. You see him diving on the floor, getting loose balls, 50-50 balls. And I think, just right now with this freshman class, I just don't think he feels comfortable with those guys out there, playing significant minutes. I think he would rather trust a veteran guy who knows the system in and out. So, Coach Grant, he's a smart guy. I know there's obviously something going on in practice that we don't see as fans. Like even myself, I can't be around the program like I would like because of COVID. So, I trust Coach Grant and his process that he has, going on with the team.
Yeah, and I think that's the nice part now. Once the dust settles from a 29-2 season, the trickle down of that from a fan perspective is that Anthony Grant gets the benefit of the doubt now. Whereas like 2 years ago in his first year, I referenced this on our last show when he brought in Joey Gruden at the Duquesne game. I was like, he's sending a message right now. Like he's mad at somebody, for effort or whatever. But your point was well taken, and that was what I mentioned to people last night was that it's not the putting the walk on in the game. Like no one's going, like he doesn't come in the game and people are like, this kid sucks. Like no one reasonably is saying that. Okay. What I'm kind of alluding to is that it's all situational. Like no one had a problem with Bobby Worley getting minutes because you guys needed Bobby Worley to get those minutes. And of course he filled in really well in that year, but it's more so of like what's happening behind the walk on. And I said, when Christian Wilson went in, I was like, I'm not so concerned with this guy. I'm concerned with why aren't the other guys on the bench getting minutes?
Yeah.
I thought I was going to see Lucas Frazier, and he reminded me of a young Chip Mikesell. So I was really ready to see him last night. You guys had the same type of aura. I was like, looks like everybody's kid brother out there, but he's probably going to put up some threes, So,
Yeah.
but just back to the point. I mean, people from, like you said, when you become a fan and you don't get to see practice every day, it just changes your perspective, because then you're sitting here like the day after and you're going, what the hell was that all about? But you don't get to go to practice anymore, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just to kind of harp on that a little bit, you have to think, this entire freshman class, they didn't get a summer to work with the strength and conditioning coach. They didn't get the summer to work with, any coaches, learning the system. It's completely different. You go from high school to college. Like, as a high school player, you can get away with just raw talent and athleticism. When you get to college, everybody's like that. So you have to learn you have to kind of understand how to play with some structure. And if you didn't have any structure in high school, learning to deal with that as a freshman playing at Division I level it's really difficult. So I think, not having really much of a preseason, not having obviously the summer for this freshman class really hurts them. But I think also you got to think, Coach Grant, he doesn't want to throw a kid out there and completely, ruin his confidence. If they go out there and they kind of lay an egg, that could ruin the kid. That could do more harm than good. I mean, I know you kind of want to throw kids out in the fire and kind of see what they're made of, but sometimes you have to make sure they're prepared to deal with the adversity that they're probably going to face more than likely.
Yeah, that's a really good point, man. And to be honest with you, that's why you're on the show, because I wouldn't have thought of that myself. But no, I mean, that's really well taken. Is that we've seen that happen, year after year, is that guys get thrown in the fire too early. They weren't not ready. You didn't see the system, or you weren't comfortable in the system rather, or, it's like you said, you're cold for a night and then you're cold the next night because you're thinking about the night before.
Exactly.
But, on the flip side, that's why you schedule teams like Eastern Illinois, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
like I said this last night in the second half, and this as a player, but you bring those teams in because if the shit if it's not going right, you have enough talent to kind of get by on talent alone, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you even look at our game last year against Indiana State, I don't know, I think we won by 6 or 8 points or something like that.
I was going to ask you about that next. Yeah.
Yeah, it was close the whole game. And at the beginning of the season, you're just trying to figure out, what works and what doesn't work. And as a player individually, you're trying to figure out, where you're going to get your shots, what you can do defensively to help out the team, and figure out, let's say it's not your night. You got to figure out different ways to impact winning. And so that's kind of basically what non-conference games are for. You're trying to figure out, just everything going on with the team and what works. So that way, once you get to conference, you're playing your best basketball and you can obviously build from there.
Yeah, man, that was the next place I was going to go with the conversation. Was I did want to ask you about Indiana State, and obviously we kind of alluded to it to talk about like why opening night is different. But in retrospect, as I look down the schedule, I was like, I think Indiana State was the worst game you guys played all year. Do you feel that way, looking back on last year?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say, obviously our losses were to some really good teams. The Colorado game, I think we got out rebounded by like 17 or something crazy like that. So like.
But you guys didn't play poorly in that game or anything.
Yeah.
They were just a good team,
Yeah. So, I mean, if you look back at it, that was really our closest game. Obviously, the St. Louis game, but that was a better team than that. But I would look all together that first game of the season, just because I think we were just trying to figure it out. That was completely. We had a lot of new guys in terms of transfers mixing in with some of the guys who've been there before. So. I kind of expect the same with this team. I think this team will only get better. Chase and Jordy, they really haven't played significant minutes yet. So the fact that they're going to have to play 25 plus minutes a night, probably Chase more like 30, 35 minutes, like all those guys, they're only going to get better with experience. So I'm excited to see, those guys who didn't really play too many, minutes last year. The fact that they're just going to get thrown in the fire, I think they're going to be ready for it.
Yeah, I agree. And I did say last night that I was expecting Chase to get a double-double last night. And it's not for any other reason than he kind of has to, like a lot of the time,
Just
Ibby. And the reason I said this is like, typically when you have forwards that are not gifted rebounders, or they're not inherent rebounders, like that's not their skill, you have guards that can kind of pick up that slack. And when I was in school, it was Chris Johnson. Like Chris Wright and Hulsman, they were kind of average rebounders, but Chris Johnson was like an elite guard rebounder. And so it kind of made up for their deficiencies. But Ibby's not that guy. I'm not knocking him. He's a pure scorer, and he's going to give you good perimeter defense. So I kind of said, Chase kind of has to be the guy down low. So my question to you, since you have, really good perspective on this whole thing, what did Chase give you guys last year in that first, 2 months? And then, what were you missing down the stretch by not having him in the roster?
Honestly, he was, he's a really good player. I think, we just had such an elite team in terms of our 4 and 5s. Like obviously we had Trey, myself, and Obi. I mean, us three, I think probably played 95% of the 4 and the 5 spot, for the team last year. We just understood the system, better than him being a new guy. But if you look, I mean, he's a really good player. He's 6'9", athletic. He can shoot the ball. He's always had that really nice looking stroke. It's just a matter of having that confidence, and for him to go out and make 3 for 3. I think, he can really build off that, because once he's hitting those threes, that opens up a lot of things for those guards. That'll relieve them from getting double teamed on pretty much all ball screens, now that they can throw it out to Chase and he can hit that shot. But he was just, just a solid guy. When he would come in, even the little spurts he came in at Mount, I think last year he had like 18 points one game.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, in Maui, he had some solid minutes. He's just a really, solid guy who's going to compete, and he just knows how to hoop. That's really the only way I know how to explain him.
Yeah, man, I hear you. I'm going down the list. I mean, it's funny how we kind of talk about guys like this. He did against Houston Baptist. He had 18 points. He was 9 for 10 from 2, and that was that game where you guys almost broke 100, right?
Yeah.
But I think people were most surprised to learn that he could shoot the ball, because, going back to what you said, I'm not in practice, and he hasn't attempted a 3 his whole career. So then he stepped out. I'm like, oh shit, like this guy can shoot 3s too. So
I was honestly a little shocked that first shot that he shot the 3, because he was wide open, and in practice I would always scream at him like, shoot the ball, especially in practice. Like you gotta learn to shoot them, because you practice them enough. You gotta at game speed and in a competition setting, you got to be able to knock it down. So, and he shot the 3 he's made. He shot him with confidence. The one he even, did a little ball fake and shot it, and it was a pure shot. So,
yeah, and just like you said, I mean, that's going to change the offense. And I think that was the thing that I found was most encouraging last night, was that if Chase can space the floor at the 4 position, just like you guys were able to do last year, it kind of opens up a lot of different things, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But to kind of harp on that, and like him in tandem with Jordy, we were saying last night that Jordy still's got to work on the finishing around the rim. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But the thing that always makes me laugh about him is, and we laughed about this last night, we're like, when Jordy comes in, what you're going to get. Like, he's going to bang down low, and because he doesn't know any other way. Like, he's just going bang somebody, and he's going to be physical. And I love that. I love that he brings that to the table. And I'm sure, I mean, I guess you could talk to it. I mean, has AG kind of taken his really physical mentality and tried to mold it into something that not is like more productive, but is going to kind of yield more results down the road?
Yeah, I think he's going to have to, just because you can't really expect those 3 guards to play a perfect game. You need other guys to help you out, because, for them to think they can have most of scoring every night, it's just not realistic. Everybody has their off nights shooting the ball. So you have to have, places elsewhere. So I think if you think about it, Jordy's going to be one of the biggest guys probably in every game. So if they can, get him established down in the post and get him some confidence, get him some touches. He has a really nice left-handed baby hook, and he is a worker. I know in practices, before and after, he's always working on his post game, working on his passings out of double teams and stuff like that. So I think his thing is just confidence. Again, he hasn't really played too many minutes last season, just because we didn't really need him to. This year, obviously, he's, kind of the guy down there. So if they can get him established down low and kind of use his size to his advantage, I think it would be huge for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was what I saw too. It was just that there's a lot to work on, and that's why I try not to get too worked up about night number one because
Yeah.
it's just a long road ahead.
Yeah.
And somebody was like on Twitter, like, "Oh, the bench is the issue," and I'm like, "Well, there's no issues yet, but if you lose the next two games, then maybe
Yeah.
there's some issues."
Yeah, for sure.
I just don't quite see it yet. So let's go to this to wrap up today, man. And obviously, always appreciate the time. We'll do this more to level set with the listeners out there. But let's talk about one thing that can hold the team back, and maybe like one thing that's going to be their greatest strength, kind of coming down the stretch here, or just even going into the season since it's very young. But let's start there. I mean, if you see this team getting held back, I mean, I've said from the jump, this is a tournament team. I didn't see anything last night to make me think otherwise. But
Mhm.
if it ends up not being a tournament team, what will be the thing that holds them back?
I think, obviously you look at the depth, guys getting injured or, I think they had two guys out last night, Dwayne, and obviously Dwayne's out the whole year, but Kobe,
Yep.
the other freshman, he was out. So just trying to figure out some sort of bench, some sort of rotation just to relieve, those three seniors, those guards. That's just the biggest thing. You got to get some sort of, bench play and just finding the guys coming off the bench, just making sure they, give some sort of impact in terms of winning. I think one of the freshmen came, I think it was RJ. He came in and I think he gave up 2 threes and maybe an offensive rebound. He just was really struggling out there. So if you can somehow get some confidence in those guys so they can go out there and kind of not think too much, but just rather just play. Obviously, I think that's one thing that's going to be important for Dayton as they move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll go off that a little bit more just before we get to the last question there, because I do think that the ceiling for this team's still pretty high, and I still think it's like to win the conference.
Yeah.
But last night they come out hot again in the second half. They go 10-0 run, start the second. You're up 15 points against Eastern Illinois.
Mm,
You've been in that position before. Last year, you guys figured out how to kind of put your foot on the neck and just finish teams
yeah.
off. But I
Mhm.
mean, the 2 years before that, and I think specifically that year you sat out, that was like the
Yeah.
biggest detriment of the team was that they had teams against the ropes and then they couldn't finish them.
Yeah.
I mean, can you speak to that? Like, is that a mentality? Is that just execution? Is that keeping your head about you? What's the most important aspect when you come down the stretch like that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, when it comes to that, your older guys kind of have to take the lead on that just because they've been through it. Jalen, he's been there, 14, 17 his freshman year. And then obviously our team only got better and better. So he's been through, losing seasons. He's been through games where we should have won. We lost it at the end. So
Yep.
I think those guys are definitely important factors in terms of just keeping the foot on the gas and keep going. I think last year we were so good at it because we had so many veterans and guys who kind of understood that, okay, like we can put these guys away. Like it's time to do that. So,
Yeah.
that's kind of what we were fortunate enough because we had older guys who kind of had that experience. And then obviously this year, those three guards are going to have to man that front and just, with each game, just try to figure out when that moment is and then try to attack it. I think that's really the only way.
Yeah. On that same point, I think there's 25 games this year. So let's say this team goes 23-2. All right, let's throw them a bone. So let's say they lose two
Yeah.
games, right? Let's say they do end up winning the conference. They get the seed in the tournament that we think they're going to, maybe between like 6 and 10. What kind of team will this be? Like, what will propel them to be a 23-2 team or whatever the heck they end up being?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say what will end up being the characteristics of them being the best version of themselves.
Oh, that's
I know I only ask the good questions. That's why I have the show. You see?
yeah. I
Yeah.
was gonna say that's a really good question. I mean, I know I keep harping on the three guards, but just being around those three guys, Rodney, Jalen, and Ibby,
It's the core of the team. I mean,
you
you say it the way it is.
right.
They're the
Yeah.
core.
Like I think having those guys is just a strength just because each one of those player can go out and get 20 or 30 a night. Like I've seen
Yeah.
it before. I've seen them in practice and stuff like that. So having those three options on the team is huge. I mean, obviously Jalen didn't score. I think he only had 13 points. People are probably expecting him to drop 20 or whatever, but he affects the game in so many other ways. I think he had 13 points, six assists, 5 rebounds.
Yep.
Rodney did his thing defensively. What he's gonna give you on both ends of the court. And then Ivy, like you said before, he's such a pure scorer and shooter. Just having those 3 guys, I don't know if there's another trio like them in college basketball. So
I agree.
Obviously the question is down low, are we going to be able to have enough there to compete night in, night out, and obviously the bench, but having those 3 guards, it's such a guards oriented game now. If you think about it, what wins you games is you have to guard play. So, having those 3 guys is going to be huge for this team. And for the young guys to lean on them, honestly, I think that's the only way for the young guys to kind of learn is to kind of just watch them and just kind of, have those guys lead by example and just kind of or try to replicate what they give in practice and in games.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not controversial to say, like, and we try to figure this out all the time, right? Like, if the team's going to go far, how are they going to get there? And this year it's pretty simple, probably every night it's got to be 2 of the 3 of those guys you just mentioned that have to get in double figures. They got to dish out a few assists and they have to contribute in other ways. And I mean, there's no other way around it just because the depth is in question. But hey, I mean, that's as fair analysis as we could ever ask for, man. Before I let you go, I know all the fans are going to ask anyway, so keep them off your heels on Twitter. What's the latest on the basketball situation moving forward for you?
Yeah. So, obviously with COVID and stuff, a lot of the situations overseas, haven't been as prominent as I would like. I was supposed to go to Germany in August. Some stuff came through with, the management and stuff like that, the organization. And then I was supposed to go to Croatia about a month and a half ago. And then their league just got suspended till the end of January or the end of December. So I'm just working.
Wait. How close? Hold on. How close were you to going over to Croatia before they were like, no, you can't come? Were you? Do you have a plane ticket? Like, were you at the airport? Like, how close was it?
No, yeah, I wouldn't say I was like that close, but I was getting ready to sign the contract, and then my agent hit me up and said their league just got suspended, so we probably don't want to sign it. I'm like, okay, well.
Back to the drawing board.
Yeah, so it's just so I'm just trying to just be around hoops. I love talking hoops, love going on podcasts and, talking college basketball. I'm excited basketball's finally on TV. You can, basically catch a game every night now, which is awesome. NBA is coming back, so, basketball season is here and I'm ready to be watching it, but I'm also ready to play some myself. So hopefully sometime sooner rather than later.
Yeah, well, enjoy the time over here because once you go overseas, you're gonna be watching games at like 2:00 in the morning, man. So yeah, you'll get to see the Saturday games when we play SMU at 2:00.
I know, yeah, but those Dayton games, I'm definitely gonna set an alarm in the middle of the night because I gotta stay up. I'm a crazy fan now. After that first game, I was up screaming at the TV and doing all that stuff. So I'm gonna be locked in for all the games.
So a couple more years, you're gonna be exactly like me, and then what do you have? And you're down to nothing.
Oh yeah. I can't. I'm waiting. I'm still waiting now. And I'm not a fight with somebody. Something you do on the regular.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's when you're really a fan is when you get in your first Twitter fight. Because like if you've never had someone like call you a horrible name or tell you to die on Twitter, like you haven't lived yet. It's exhilarating.
Yeah,
I'm telling you.
Yeah,
I look forward to it.
I was gonna say I'm excited for it. I'm ready to use these Twitter fingers.
Oh God. Well, we always appreciate the time on the podcast, man. We'll do it again soon, and hopefully, if you have some time before you go overseas, we can get you on the pregame show in Tim's because I know that'll give you an excuse to go back into Tim's. Not that you need an excuse to go back to Tim's, but I'm told that the beers are free during the show, so I don't know. Like I get a free meal apparently. It's hard to turn down, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say Tim's. They just renovated their kitchen area too, so they got some good food.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm looking forward to it this Saturday, man. So hopefully we can coordinate. But in the meantime, love talking hoops and love having a conversation with you, man. Thanks.
Yeah, look forward to talking to you soon. Appreciate it.